All right, the furniture design project is something that is actually pretty easy. There's a lot of steps, and that makes it seem complicated, but it really is fairly simple. The bottom line is that you are going to practice using the design process by designing either a table or a chair. And you actually come up with an idea, pretend client, and then you come up with a way to solve that, and then you provide actually six different designs, and they're not, fully, they're not fully seen all the way through. They're just kind of preliminary annotated sketches, which means sketches with notes on them for six designs. Now, like I believe I said, you're either designing a table or a chair. Those are your two options, a table or a chair. And it needs to meet a specific problem for your client. So this is the packet here, and you can see that the very first step is define a problem. Once you define that problem, then you can start generating concepts. You can start making some sketches and developing some ideas as to what you want to do. Once you have those six sketches, 3 from you and 3 from your partner that have the notes on them, they're annotated, then you will need to make a decision, and you can use a decision matrix to do that, but you need to make a decision of the 6, which one you would recommend to this hypothetical client, this pretend client that you're going to create. Now, to do the follow the design process, you're going to be using this furniture design brief. Now, here is where you would list the client and information about the client, and I'll get into that in a second. The designers are you and your partner. The problem statement is whatever the problem this client is having. Your design statement is a real simple statement as to what you are going to design to solve the problem. The constraints, you have to come up with 6 of them. That's going to be things like size, color, the needs of the client as far as their height and weight, or make sure it's going to fit through doors. I mean, all that kind of stuff. So these are constraints. These are design constraints, things that will guide your design and limit it. The deliverables, there are 6 things you will deliver, and those I'll go over in a second. So that's general breakdown of what the project is. Some vocabulary that's helpful, criteria and decision matrix, just to give you an idea what those are, but we'll be posting that up as you are working. The design brief is a tool for defining the problem. It's an agreement between the engineer and client. So engineers use this to essentially create an organized way to show their design process, to understand what the client wants, and then to make sure that they are actually meeting the client need. So in this project, you have decision-making control over the selection of your partner. You'll be able to pick your partner. You're going to be able to decide, am I doing a table or a chair? You're going to decide who your client is because you're going to make up this client. You decide the constraints, the design elements used, and then there's also, in the end, you will self-evaluate your performance based on the rubric. So who's your client? So when you're talking about filling out the decision-making matrix, the design brief, this client, this is the information that needs to go here. So who is your client? Who are you building this for? What is your client's age, location, gender, interests, income level, favorite colors, etc.? For the problem, why are you building it? What problem does it solve for the client? And this is something you want to write in a complete sentence, where you're saying, what is the problem for the client? Make up a problem. Who knows what the problem is? You're going to make that up specific to your client. So when you think of somebody specific, what kind of a problem would that client have? Now, there is a PowerPoint that's listed on Google Classroom that goes into this more, and I believe it's a student who has a locker, and they have some problems organizing their locker. So they're going to design something to help with that. That would be the problem, an unorganized locker. The design statement, what are you going to design? As I said, it's just a simple statement describing what you'll be designing to solve the client's problem. And, that would go here. Now the constraints. You need to come up with at least 6 constraints. These 6 constraints are what you will use on your decision matrix to assess each of your concepts and determine the best solution. So going back to that locker example, if you are trying to create something to go in the locker, one of the constraints would be that it needs to fit in the locker. If it doesn't fit in the locker, then it's not helpful. Another constraint would be that it needs to have a space for, books that are 12 inches high or whatever it happens to be. But you would come up with 6 of those. Maybe another constraint would be the color. The customer is requiring that it is red or blue or pink or orange or whatever it happens to be. So you need to come up with at least 6 of those things. The deliverables, so once again, we're looking at this design brief, and we've already talked about client, designer, problem statement, design statement, the constraints, and now the deliverables. This is what you will deliver to the client. It is the things that you will actually provide to them. When you are done with this project, you will provide this to them. You will provide them a completed design brief. That means that you will have finished this. Okay? You will provide them with 6 annotated design concepts, which will be done on graph paper. And I'll be providing that graph paper for you later. But 6 annotated means notes, 6 design concepts with notes on it. So if you're doing a table, you would come up with 6 different tables. You would have a drawing of each one on an individual piece of paper, and it would have notes on it to show kind of what it's made of and how big it is and all that kind of information. A completed decision matrix. Now, we haven't talked about that much, but the decision matrix is this thing here. And we're going to talk about that later. For right now, you probably don't want to worry about that. But essentially, you put your 6 annotated designs on here. And then you would say, what are my 6 constraints? So it needs to fit in the locker. It needs to be red. It needs to fit books that are 12 inches tall, whatever. And you would have these 6 right here. Then you would have design A, and you would say, does it meet design A? And if the answer is yes, it would get a 2. If the answer is no, it would get a 1. And then you total them up. And essentially what you're seeing is which one of the 6 designs has the highest total. The one that has the highest total would be the design you would pick. That would be what you would give to the client. So that helps you to make the decision. Which one of the 6 will we use? And then I